Pump it up, pump it up.
It's the day with
This is the day to gain inspiration, to make a positive change in the nation. We're inviting you to partake in conversation to raise your vibration. It's the day that we will all celebrate all of our peace that make this thing elevate. Watch the negative fade away, cause it's the day with Trae.
Grand Rising, everyone. Welcome to the Day with Trae. I'm your host, Trae Holiday. I get to welcome you to a fantastic Friday. Really excited for my guest who's in the building. We got Saudia Abdullah. She is one of the candidates for the mayor of Federal Way. She's here to tell us about the work that she's doing out there in Federal Way. And y'all know I'm a Federal Way homeowner, so I'm excited to learn more and also bring y'all along for the journey. But of course, this is the top of the show, so you're already on the journey with us. Go ahead and share this show with others who you feel could benefit from our daily dose of dopeness right here on the Day with Trae. If you can't watch our TV show, y'all know we got you covered. Just go ahead and listen to us anywhere you find your favorite podcast. Just search Converge Media Network and the Day with Trae. You'll find us on your favorite platforms. Now, before I get into it with Saudia, I want to just quickly say something that, you know, this week we've been talking about arts, we've been talking about events, we've been talking about politics, and it really sat with me this morning. Wow, y'all know we try to give you a wide variety of ways to showcase brilliance, be inspired, and be engaged in what's going on right here in the Pacific Northwest. And it's a beautiful thing because there's all types of ways to be involved. And I was just talking about all the ways to be engaged in civic engagement, but so much of this means that you gotta care. That's right, you have to care. You got to care more about just yourself or just your family or just your children. When we think about caring, we think about how we lead with care. And oftentimes that means that others are going to experience the nurture and nature of our care. And the beauty is that caring costs nothing. It's a little bit of your heart. It's a little bit of you giving in a way that makes it very easy for others to feel, understand, and absorb. It might be time, maybe some energy, but it really is something that is free to us all. When you experience someone who touches you in a way because of their care and the way that it shows up, sometimes you can't even put your real, like a name to it. Can't point to exactly what it was about that interaction that made you feel something. But the more you're doing that and you continue to do that, the more we're all encouraged to do it. So when I'm talking about inspiration and I want y'all to work away from the apathy or maybe some of the silos that are being created through technology, you know, the constant scrolling, because entertainment is right here at our fingertips. And it's become so easy for us to just focus on things that are giving us those dopamine drips, right? Ultimately, being someone who's leading with care allows for others to experience that synergistic energy exchange in ways that could impact them to do something greater, do something bigger. So I'm saying today that I realize that no matter what we're covering here on the Day with Trae, ultimately, I'm encouraging you to care. So I wanted to name that today. Well, after this short break, up next, we got Saudia Abdullah in the building. We're going to learn about all the ways that she cares coming up right after this short break. Stay tuned. You're watching The Day with Trae.
You on my mind a lot. Don't need no time watch. I don't know how I got you in my pocket spot. Yeah, that's babe. Need you every day. You seem like the barging down. Got my heart no barging in. From the bed to the floor to the couch. Might wake the neighbors up. Break you in and break you out. In the end, we gon' make a child. Then we gon' hit the shower. Part 2, we don't need no pause. You can't miss you. We gon' get tipsy. Don't need a power shot.
Copy my steel. Face the fact that copy my steel. Face the fact that
I was someone that the community gave up on. If I didn't have access to naloxone, I don't think I'd be sitting here today. Harm reduction services gave me all the tools and medications necessary to turn my life around. When we fully utilize these resources for needle exchanges, proper medical care, peer support, shelter, I, like many other people out there, we found a way to recover.
Find harm reduction resources at supportaddictionrecovery.com.
In Seattle, it's more than just coffee. It's community. At the station, we brew more than just your favorite cup. We brew connection. From Beacon Hill to Columbia City, we're a space for artists, activists, and everyone in between. A place to gather, create, and simply be. Whether you need a quiet place to work, a lively spot to meet friends, or just a moment to unwind, find your place at the station. More than coffee, it's home. Visit us in Beacon Hill or Columbia City. The station, where community happens.
Hey, what up, everybody? Truth Talks is one of the hottest shows streaming, and we're expanding. You can catch all the tea live and unedited Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, and again at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. Dive into the truths you need to hear, from pop culture to politics and some of the biggest celebrity exclusive.
I wrote the song in the car.
Get out the way. That was my theme song.
Set your reminder to catch us live on Fox Soul or binge watch on YouTube/Fox Soul.
Oh, welcome back, y'all, to the Day with Trae. Of course, I'm your host, Trae Holiday. Joining me right now, we got Saudia Abdullah in the building. Hi, Saudia.
Hello, how are you today? Federal Way peeps?
Yeah. Well, you know, we've already been talking because I can't help myself, y'all. You already know. But the truth of the matter is I got to get back to the beginnings here. I mean, when we talk about dipping your toes into politics, stepping all the way in to run for the mayor of Federal Way, just take us back to those beginnings. What are some of those beginning experiences that made you say, wait a minute, I can serve in a greater capacity?
So the reality is it probably started in 2018. Karen Besserman, now deceased, was leading Emerge Washington, and they were looking for women to run for office. And she took me to a lovely dinner downtown Seattle at an Ethiopian restaurant. And I said, thank you for the food, but no thank you. Mm-hmm. And I went back to my job at the jail and was like, okay, let me live my life. But the reality is sometimes we have to move beyond being voters and beyond being just sort of the person that waves the sign. And we have to put our names on the line. And so for me, after a long time with my family over a Christmas break, I was like, okay, let me do this. I have a voice. I want to speak power to truth. I want to make Federal Way the city I know it's capable of, right? We're 109,000 people, 23 separate languages spoken in our school districts, but we have the same problems we've been fighting the last 12 years. And I think now it's time for change. And I believe I'm that person that can bring that change.
Well, you know, so much of this is about reflection of lived experience, and we always talk about the need for us to have a diverse lived experience at the table that's really making decisions, particularly at the city level where, you know, cities have such agency to ensure that their city is reflecting the needs of its citizens. Tell us a bit more about how you see your lived experience shaping up in that way.
I tell people all the time, I live in Federal Way. I ride the bus. That's how I got to and from downtown every day. That's how I get to the airport or anywhere else I'm going. I shop in our local grocery stores, and so I know which one is get the best eggs at, because right now eggs are $8, and so I know you can go to one store and get them for $5 and the next door. But I also understand that people are looking for jobs. I understand that our crime has not been taken care of. I understand there are not resources in the community. We continue to get pushback for issues that are important that we're talking about. We're at the local restaurants talking about them. We're at the local, Fusion Cafe saying, hey, what about those tents? Or what about this lack of affordable housing? But I don't see it being taken care of on our city council. I don't see our current electorate really pushing forward and progress and making the progress we need in our city.
Yeah, I think of the issues, and I would always say, I'm astounded at the number of families who have been gentrified out of other legacy neighborhoods, historic neighborhoods, and a lot of folks flooding to South King County for affordability, and yet their needs don't seem to yet be reflected oftentimes in maybe what the council is doing, what the mayoral administration is doing. Tell us a bit about how you see the need to serve those who are now newer maybe to the Federal Way area, calling it home.
So one of the things Federal Way has getting a little bit right is we do have some affordable housing. In the last 12 years since I've been there, I've seen several apartment complexes come available. But there's also this middle income. We continue to forget about the middle class in this country. And that makes up a lot of us, right, that are part of the global majority. We've been able to go to college, we've been able to get government jobs and things of that nature so we can afford our homes. But can we afford to get them fixed? Mm-hmm. Can we afford to make sure our children have after school care and before school care? Can we make sure that our children have the right schools to go to, not just one if they want vocation, right? Right now there's 1 or 2 high schools for vocational program and the rest, good luck. So what happens to all of our students? How do we make sure that they have that third space to go to, right? They're going to school, they're going home, but what's at the mall for them to go to as well? How do we have studios like this in Federal Way? Our youth are absolutely doing great things on TV with social media and TikTok. I see them in the parking lot dancing. How do we bring that inside? How do we make them be part of the change that's coming in community? About 14% of our folks are elderly, but we have a large contingent of young people. How do we keep them in Federal Way? How do we have them buying apartments and buying condos and buying new homes? How do we make sure that this is a place for them to live, work, and play into the future?
Yeah, I think it's so important to be thinking about the youth, especially when we have a large population of them. And it's interesting because, you know, if you start to sit down and talk to them, they'll be so excited to be heard. Because oftentimes it's like, oh, you know, if you're not able to vote yet, maybe it's not your time, you know, right? Like until you can vote, then maybe. But it's like there's so much that we can learn from having these kinds of conversations, but also intergenerationality, which I love how you call out the elders and the youth. And so there needs to be some direct ways of doing that. What are some of the things that you're really standing on when you think about, okay, my campaign resonates in these ways? What are some of those things for folks to know?
So my campaign really has three pillars, right? Reimagining public safety. I've been in criminal justice now almost 3 decades. Hiring more police is not going to solve all of our problems. We have to get to the root causes of poverty, drug addiction, behavioral health issues, making sure that our youth do have access. Not all of our youth are going to college, and so making sure they have access to pre-apprenticeship programs, vocational programs in the high schools, right? Not just, graduate and hopefully you can go to Renton Technical or go to South Seattle or something like that, but also making sure that we have the resources and investments in community. We have King County bought 2 hotels almost 4 years ago. They're still not open. As a city, we need to be able to support our nonprofits to provide mental health, physical health, workforce development, because ultimately everyone's going to need to be able to work. And so partnering in a regional way with all of the cities in South King County to uplift Federal Way is going to be the way that we move forward.
Yeah, you know, I think regional approaches really work. And I think just yesterday, you know, talking to the mayor of Burien, I realized that there's, you know, when there are best practices that work, there's no need for the reinvention of the wheel. I mean, let's just go ahead and make sure that the ways that this practice has worked here, does it make sense for us here? Let's adopt it here. I think there's this, sometimes for me, it feels like everybody's rushing to be the first. And if you can't be the first, it's not interesting, you know, right? And so I think that really hurts us as citizens in our cities, because there's so many different things that we could be learning from and just adopting here. So I really appreciate you sharing this regional approach. Now, when I think about Federal Way, I think about how as a renter, before I was a homeowner, nobody was coming to talk to me. And it was something that always struck me. People wanted me to run for office all the time. And I, like you, I was like, no, not yet. Let me keep doing media, right? Let me keep shining a light on these things. But I realized that there is a need to connect with the folks who are still, unfortunately, in that survivor mode. What are some of those ways that you kind of foresee the need to connect with them, and how do you plan to do so?
So first of all, I set a goal for myself at the very beginning of this, that I wanted to knock 9,000 doors, right? And so for me, that is literally I went and got a new pair of gym shoes and quite literally getting out and knocking on doors. And instead of telling them about me, asking them about them. Because while I believe, I know I've worked hard to study, I've been in community to figure out what's going on, I still need to learn. And I think that's the difference, is getting out to those 9,000 people. When I'm at the grocery store, I'm that person in the grocery store. If you're getting peanut butter and I'm getting peanut butter, I'm gonna talk to you about, well, why you chose that type. And then we're gonna talk about, well, hey, I'm also running for office and let's have that conversation. And so for me, I can't stress enough about me being in community to talk to individuals, but to learn from them, not just to just give them what my ideas are, but to learn what they're also thinking and want. Because it's not also just about surviving, it's about thriving. Yeah. We want to be in a space that we can do good things. I want to sit in the summertime and watch a movie at the park. I want to go to Still Lake and dip my toes in the freezing cold water, or watch one of our nonprofits take young boys fishing. I want to be part of that community. And that's what I want us to continue to build. And we have the opportunities in Federal Way if we simply partner, invest, collaborate, and work together.
You know, I agree. I think there's so many great nodes happening in Federal Way. I mean, we have some phenomenal organizations that continue to stay engaged and involved. We have some great commissions, you know, that are encouraging in terms of, you know, reaching out to community members and giving folks opportunities to partner and engage. And yet there's still a lack of awareness. I think that is really true and permeates a lot of Federal Way families. Whether it be, hey, I'm focused on work and then I come home, I got to cook for my kids, whatever it is, whatever that kind of everyday hustle and bustle is. I think there's a strong, of course, media is my forte, but I always think there's a strong opportunity for the council, for the mayoral administration to be reaching into the homes of everyday Federal Way families. So I love hearing you talk about knocking on 9,000 doors. But when you think about having that seat, let's say you win, what are some of those ways that you want to keep folks engaged in the work of shaping Federal Way up to really reflect their needs?
You know, one of the benefits we learned from the pandemic is that media and technology can help us. And so continuing the process of streaming city council meetings and our different meetings, but also making sure that we're going to different places and having some of these conversations in the middle of the mall. Right, in the little rotunda where you used to let your kids run around, and having those conversations, being in community, being in the coffee shops to make sure that we see what's going on. Showing up at a PTA meeting, not because I still have children that are in school, but because that's where the parents are coming. We know that they're coming those 3 days for the parent-teacher conferences, and so having city officials post up and say, hey, what is it that we can do? Being at, you know, some of our emergency rooms, not in a way at our hospitals, to be able to talk to people. How accessible is this? Right? Until I got sick, I didn't realize that we had different options for emergency rooms in Federal Way. Mm-hmm. And so making sure that our community understands that there are different places for you to go for different things, right? You don't have to drive all the way to Seattle for a children's hospital because we have accessibility right there in Federal Way. Making sure that people are able to get to these different things. Having a bus service that doesn't end, you know, at 9, 10 o'clock at night, so that if I'm working a late shift, I can actually get there. I talk to people literally to their chagrin at times, but any and everywhere, at the grocery stores, in the malls, but going where the people are. We've got to get back to this notion of getting out into community. And yes, it's a little difficult during the wintertime when it's rainy, but we have great summers. We have lots of parks and trails in Federal Way, and so let's utilize them to get out into the community and be part of the people.
Yeah, I think it's so important because the silos are real, but they're hurting us, right? And I talk about the individuality of our world all the time. I mean, just all the things they're right here. It's all, you know, the use of technology, the acceptance of it, the embracing of so much technology has moved us and shifted us, in a sense, to less human-centric connection and engagement. And so I thrive in just being with the people, right? And so I love that you're like, look, this is important. We need to be out there. We need to be touching families. We also know, too, that there are some things that we just deal with in terms of inaffordability in general. Child care is one of them. I think about young families, you know, they got their child. Child care becomes pretty inaccessible when you think about paying out of pocket. And so I just want to ask if you have views on that or ways that you're looking at, how do we shift this? How do we change it?
Yeah. You know, I was one of the lucky people who had, you know, family and friends when my son was really little. And so by the time that I was able to have to put him in after school programs, I was shocked. Just for after school, before school for an hour and 3 hours after school, I was paying $350, almost $400 a month. And so what I see is the city's responsibility is to be investing in things like the Boys and Girls Club, because that's where my son was going before school, and the EX3 as a teenager. Being able to invest in them so that they don't have to charge the community, right? There's always individuals, if you're already receiving some sort of public assistance, you get help for that. But like you're saying, those mothers or those parents who, you know, maybe I went to college and I got a little bit, I've been able to purchase a home, but that $350 is a lot. And so if the city were able to invest in some of these types of programs, in our educational system to have after school programs. I remember being a kid, we have free community centers. So after school I went, I had one computer, not to date myself, but we were able to get on it. That's where I learned to play bumper pool. But it's also where I got help from my local college students in my math homework. It's also where my mother knew that I was able to be for 2 hours before she got home from work and I didn't have to be a latchkey kid and go home. And so having city invest in our after school and before care programs, either at a Boys and Girls Club or right there on location with the city will be critically important. In particular, as we're looking at some of the federal cutbacks, we have 76,000 federal employees in the state of Washington. If they continue to lose their jobs, we're going to have to be able to step up and help those individuals as well. And making accessible, childcare accessible will definitely go a long way to help that.
Yeah, well, I'll say one more thing here is I'm experiencing as someone living out there, it looks like there's some huge investment, right? We see the expansion of the light rail, right? And with Sound Transit, we see a lot of restaurants coming to the area. And, you know, it's interesting because I go, oh, wow, that popped up? Like, I didn't even know that was there. My son said, yeah, there's a Wingstop here now. I said, what? Whoa, right? So, like, just the fact that— I
discovered that recently.
Yeah, so the fact that, like, it feels like there is some type of revitalization that I think Federal Way families are also experiencing. Can you talk about the continuance of that, or how do we sustain that type of feel? Because there's something that's definitely shifting in a positive direction.
Absolutely. With the coming of light rail, what we have is when you look at that 320th corridor, we really have the opportunity to be a destination place, right? So a person has gotten off work, and instead of going home or getting in their car, they can get off the bus, get off the train, and go right into the mall, pick something up. They can go right into one of the restaurants, right? Go over to Wingstop real quick. And so what we have to do is we have to make that accessible. And so some of that is going to be some traffic mitigation and looking at how we look at 320th. Some of that is going to be making it more walkable and more accessible. And the other part of that is building differently, right? Building condos and going up and having different levels of housing in that manner to make sure that people like me who no longer, you know, my kid is grown, I don't want a big house anymore, but a condo right on 320th, walking access to the mall, to the Performing Arts Center, and now I'm able to do more things there. Don't forget, we also have in Federal, we have Dumas Bay. Yeah. Right, so that's a beautiful location, especially with the water, and we have hotels. So investing in Dumas Bay so that Federal Way can continue to be a destination place. We are on the cusp of being that big city. And I think one of the things that we need to be able to do is to have that synergy and to collaborate and to be smart about our growth. We have to keep our green spaces. At the end of the day, we are Washington. We want our green trees and our grasses and our trails, and being able to do some traffic mitigation, but also being smart about how we build condos, being smart about how we bring those businesses in so that we can help them thrive. And advertising that, using media, right? Bringing you down and doing a quick little restaurant tour of things. In the summertime, the last thing I'll say is in the summertime, the Diversity Commission puts on, you know, the Federal Way Fest. And so this last year, I think there were 70 vendors of restaurants and nonprofits and businesses right in the community. So the last part is just telling people who we are. We're ready. Come on down to Federal Way and live and play and enjoy the city that we've created.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Saudia, thank you so much for being here. Of course, if folks are wanting to follow, learn more about your campaign as all of this shapes up, look right there. Let them know how they stay connected.
So thank you very much, first of all, for having me. Our kickoff is on May 8th at the Federal Way Community Center at 6:30 p.m. I ask that everyone come out out so that you can hear the message that I have for you. Follow our campaign at electsaudia.com.
Wow. Great work, and I'm looking forward to learning more. Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much for throwing your name in the hat.
Thank you very much for your time.
Absolutely. Wow, y'all, what a way to stay engaged and informed. I get to wrap all of this up right after this short break. Stay tuned. You're watching The Day with Trae.
Empowering the community one connection at a time. ConnectWA is your partner in finding the support you need. Download the app today and experience the difference that a connected community can make. Learn more at eec-wa.org/connectwa-app.
Hello, welcome to Elite Insights with Carlos Imani. We're looking to offer an in-depth look at event production industry through the lens of client experiences and joint successes. The podcast will emphasize guest interviews, focusing on client discussing their fields and reflecting on their collaboration with Elite Collective. Again, you're with Elite Insights. Carlos Imani here. I'll see you guys in a few.
Here on Back to Vesa, it's always been important to me that we uplift stories from across the region and that no matter where you live in the nation, you never have to miss a moment of the show as we continue to highlight the beauty, excellence, and resilience of our communities across the Pacific Northwest. Why? Because representation matters. So no matter where you live, be it the Central District or Centralia, Portland or Pullman, or anywhere across the country, I encourage you to join me on this Back to Vesa journey by downloading the free Fox Local app on your phone or smart TV as we continue to elevate the very best in our communities.
Africatown Plaza is our latest affordable housing development project. It's 126 units of affordable housing over community commercial space.
It's the first time in my career, and I've been doing this for 10 years, that I was able to design for people who look like me.
Africatown Plaza is a beacon of hope.
Africatown Plaza is a love letter to the community.
I'm your host, Trae Holiday. Huge shout out, man, to Saudia Abdullah. Now, y'all know I am a Federal Way resident, so it is not often that I get someone from Federal Way to come on and talk about what they're doing to make this city better. But it also is a reflection for me of me being engaged as somebody who lives and owns a home in Federal Way. And this is why I'm talking to y'all about being engaged. Whatever city you're living in, please make sure that you're finding a way to be a part of this collective voice that continues to hold our elected officials accountable. Whether there's somebody who's new that needs to hear about the things that you are seeing in terms of gaps in services, gaps in connection and engagement with community members, we need to hear from y'all, because that's really what helps to shape up and make our cities better and ensure that those who are throwing their names in these hats hear directly from us so that they can focus a bit on what you need, so that they can remember that if they get that seat, they now have those connections with you that said, man, if this person from this area never told me about this issue, I wouldn't have thought about this. I wouldn't have understood. So then when they're at these tables and resources are flowing, they can also be connected to the ways that you need resources. So this is why civic engagement is important. And of course, I was inspired by Saudia and her work, just her lived experience, wanting to be a part of shaping up the city of Federal Way to be better. So I want y'all to be inspired. You too can be a part, even if you're not throwing your name in a political campaign or in a hat to run for elected office. There are so many different ways that you can be inspired and also be a part of these solutions that are needed in your city. Thanks so much for watching and joining me this week. It's always a great week when I get to be with all of y'all. Of course, I'll be back with y'all next week on Monday. Until then, at 11 a.m., y'all. Peace.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.